Hello and welcome, I'm Kira the Scrivener, and today I'm going to be doing a small book haul. It's going to be low-key and casual, and I'm really enjoying it. I went to thrift storing because I love thrift books. I love the fact that all of these books were incredibly cheap. First five I bought for $4.50 because thrift stores be good, and the second two were more expensive. They were like $7 for two books, but you know, I had to balance out some of my cheap books. And all of these I'm really excited for. Most of them are Canadian books, which make me really happy. Some of them are series, and I'm just really delighted to talk about them. I love thrift stores. I think repurposing books is such a beautiful way. It's cheap, it's beautiful, and I got some books that are a little bit newer or harder to find, which also made me really happy. Got some Canadian lit in here, which made me really happy. So, Son of a Trickster is the first book that I saw, and I was really happy to see it. This is by Eden Robinson, and she won several awards for this. She's an Indigenous Canadian author who I believe lives in BC. It is about a teen boy who has some powers and is looking at his heritage, looking at his story. Continuing on the Canadian thing, I also have Funny Boy. He's a Sri Lankan author who published this in 1994, and it is a book that has gained a lot of prestige and honor in Canada, even though it is not the most well-sold book. It deals with a young Sri Lankan boy who is gay and experiencing his feelings, and it would be published a decade before gay marriage was legalized in Canada in 2005. So it was a book which got a lot of buzz, got a lot of recognition, and dealt a lot with heavy topics. I did not realize it would be published almost 30 years ago until I was looking at the classics edition being like, hey, this is classics. And yeah, I looked it up and it's 1994, which is super cool. And also at this bookshop, I was delighted to see this on the bottom shelf. I was like, oh my goodness. So we have all of these. So this is the Eustace Diamonds, and then we have the Framley Parsonage, as well as Dr. Thorne. And these books are all by Anthony Trollope, and they are published in 1940s or so. I read The Warden and the Barchester Towers in his series, and the other one is from his Pelsfar books, and I'm really excited to get them. These are actually the next two. I really am enjoying Anthony Trollope as a writer. And then I have two more recent books. We have Modern Love by Emma Straub. I actually didn't look up the synopsis for this, but it is by the same author as All Adults Here, which is a book that just made me cry so much. It dealt with like family dynamics and adult children, as well as their mother who's in her 60s. And it does not have a description here. It says, friends and former college bandmates Elizabeth and Andrew and Zoe have watched one another marry, buy real estate, and start businesses and families, all while trying to do the hard things of their identities in their youth. Back in the band's heyday, Elizabeth put on a snarl over her Midwestern smile, and Andrew was the lesbian all the straight women wanted to sleep with. Now nearing 50, they live within the shouting distance in their same neighborhood deep in the gentrified Brooklyn, and the trappings of the adult world seem to have arrived with ease. That sounds really delightful. Again, looking at people who've known each other for decades and their dynamics and stuff like that. I'm really excited to see this and to read it. And yeah, I really enjoyed the ways in which she looked at older characters, where she looked at older LGBT characters, especially in that, and that was really good. So we also have Fight Night by Miriam Taves. This one was shortlisted for the Giller last year, and I never ended up reading it, but I read Women Talking by her and really enjoyed it, so I'm really excited to read another book by her. And that is all I bought today, but I have collected several books over the last few weeks and months, because look, I have the most adorable little cart right now, and this is all the books that I haven't read. So let's look at some of these. I have Malibu Rising right here, which I got as a little thrift store and really liked it. It's obviously really well loved and might be my favorite Taylor Jenkins reads, which I know is really controversial. Then we have Stoner by John Williams. I don't know anything about this book. I remember seeing reviews about it on Goodreads and stuff, and it's a mid-century book looking at a man's life. I don't know much about it, but it was free. And then my most expensive book in forever is Lottery. I really love looking at this edition and looking at this. Shirley Jackson is one of my favorite authors. I've always really enjoyed her as an author, and this one, what cemented the Demon Lover, is like painted into my brain. I love it so much. I'm currently trying to write some horror short stories, so this is excellent. And also the same day I got Black Skin, White Masks, which overjoyed me because this one is a book I've been looking for forever. And it was published in 1952 by a Martinique man who wrote about his experiences and colonialism and the ways in which white colonialism has affected Black people and their psyches and stuff, because he's a psychologist, and this is nonfiction, and it is a free little library book, so after I read it I'm going to return it, but I'm really excited to have it in my collection because I believe my library doesn't have it, which devastated me. And I got Bad Feminist by Roxane Gay. This is a book that I haven't read, but I read Hunger by her and really liked it, and the cashier when I was checking out was like, that is such a great book, and I was like, yes. And then got Outline. I would not have gotten this except for it was cheap. Rachel Cusp is an author I'm not sure I like. I read this book and liked it and then hated it, and now I have the trilogy because it was cheap and I felt compelled. How do you not buy 3 books? And we got Oscar Wilde and all his things. I got some of his plays and some of his novels already, but this is all his work and hopefully I'll like it better. My story with Oscar Wilde is so far I really love Lady Windermere's fan as well as Importance of Being Earnest, and I hated, despised, rejected everything about Dorian Gray. I couldn't get into it. I couldn't get into it. So I think his plays will work better. I think there's also some poetry and stuff in it. I'll get to see it. I also have My Brilliant Friend, and this is a book I feel controversial because we don't know who the author is, but I've also heard really great things about it, and yeah, I might finally give it a chance. Fraser Simons really recommended it in a way that made me want to read it for the first time. And then I think I grabbed the last 3 books. First of all, we have Cerebrus Blooms at Night, and this is by Shania Moto, and she is Canadian and she is of South Asian ancestry but grew up in the Caribbean, and I think that this is such an interesting story and part of a history that does not get told as much. I read David Chariandry's book that is Things I've Been Meaning to Tell You, which I think is a delightful book, and I follow Saajid, who talks about his own experiences on being a South Asian man who lives in the Caribbean. So this is a book that I have been meaning to read for quite a while, and I was like, I need to get to it. And then I have Virginia Woolf, A Haunted House and Other Stories. I don't know what includes this, but I like Virginia Woolf, so of course I picked it up. And then this one, my most mysterious book, The Victim of Prejudice, Mary Hayes. This is the 2nd edition, and it is a book from like the 1790s or something. It's really old. It's like one of these copies that's really ugly, but I will hopefully read it eventually. It sounds like a classic book that I would love to dive into. In the 1700s, I've been diving more into, especially by women authors, which is super cool. So yeah, that is the books that I have picked up lately, and I would love to hear what random books you found in the world, and I'll talk to you soon.